I'll keep this short because audience retention is a thing that exists, but this video is not intended to be a promotion for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, nor am I being paid by Sony or Marvel or the general concept of animation. Also, the strikes in Hollywood are good because the main goal is to keep writing and acting as a viable career for people who aren't A-listers, and the writers and presumably actors behind this movie are currently on strike fighting for that very thing. If you want to learn more about the strikes, I've left some links in the description, and without further ado, on to the video. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can, but what can he do and still be Spider-Man? Is it the does whatever the spider can that makes him Spider-Man? Is it the man? Is it capitalism? Is it society? All this and more in this month's or weeks or years or who knows at this point's video. Spider-Man is a cool character, and he's been around for a while. Introduced in August of 1962, the character was basically an instant hit, actually saving the Amazing Fantasy label under which he was introduced. I think you know the rest. He got a bunch of comics, a couple of animated shows, even a few video games. And oh yeah, movies! Spider-Man has appeared in 14 different movies, one of which was a post-credit scene in Venom Let There Be Carnage, so make of that what you will, and has been the lead and title character of 10 of them. 3 with one actor, 2 with 2 others, and 1 with all 3, and then a couple of animated ones that turned out to be the best because you shouldn't underestimate animation. Point is, Spider-Man is a very well-known character, but what actually makes him Spider-Man? Well, to state the obvious, there's the spider powers, though those can vary. Other than that, who knows? The latest Spider-Man movie, Across the Spider-Verse, features a plethora of spider people of various shapes, sizes, and species. One's a car. That movie is interesting for a ton of reasons, some but not all of which I went into in my previous video on the movie, so you can watch that if you want, or don't, it's up to you. But one that I didn't mention is how the movie explores the idea of what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man. The movie does this in one major way that, in itself, encompasses a few supporting concepts of Spider-Man-ness, the major way being the canon, and the supporting concepts being canon events. I'm not going to make that some big mystery. If you've seen the movie, you knew exactly what was coming. That said, if you haven't, then there will be spoilers in this video for Across the Spider-Verse. Anyway, basically canon events are interesting and pose an interesting meta-commentary on what it really means to be Spider-Man, so let's just jump right in. The Flash, above all else, is not Spider-Verse. However, I read a review on Letterboxd for The Flash that actually did have a lot in common with Spider-Verse. The review was by Comrade Yui, I hope I pronounced that right, and it talks about heroes and scars. Yet that's the thing about scars, they never quite heal over, do they? We keep picking at them, picking at that scab, returning to it over and over again, never quite able to get over what hurt us that deeply. The moment that redefined us, the moment that never really ends, the moment that serves as a lens for everything to come afterwards. Now, that was in regards to something Batman said, so it's more in reference to Batman's origin than anything, but it reminds me a lot of a line from Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. When Miles is in the Spider Society HQ, Miguel is talking to him about canon events and telling him that his dad is destined to die. In response, Miles looks around the room and asks what people would do in his situation. He turns to Peter B. Parker and asks what he would have done if he knew Uncle Ben was going to die, to which Peter replies,
"If not for Uncle Ben, most of us wouldn't be here, Miles."
I'm sure a lot of you can already see where I'm going with this, but this statement reflects a lot of what our boy Comrade Yui was getting at. Spider-Man does what he does because of Uncle Ben, because of the iconic lesson he instilled in Peter the day he died. With great power comes great responsibility. Peter always ignores this at first, not really caring, until he lets a robber go and Ben pays the ultimate price for Peter's mistake. That's what makes Peter Spider-Man. That's the whole reason he even does what he does. And yet, it's a bit of a double-edged sword when you think about it. Peter is there as Spider-Man, using his great power with great responsibility, because of the one time that he didn't. He does a lot of good, stops a lot of bad people, because of the one time he let one go. And yet, he can never save Uncle Ben. Peter puts on the mask because of his mistake, to atone for it, and yet he can't. He can save hundreds, even thousands of people, and still in his mind keep going back to the one time he didn't. He can never move on, never forgive himself and let it go, and he can never go back and save Uncle Ben. But what if he never lost Uncle Ben in the first place? Here's where Miles comes in. Miles is in a position where he can save someone close to him, someone he normally couldn't. Miles won't be Spider-Man to atone for losing someone if he never loses that person. But will he still be Spider-Man? In the scene in the HQ where Miles learns his dad is going to die, he also learns about the canon and canon events. Miguel tells him that canon events are events that must happen in a Spider-Person's journey, or else the whole multiverse will collapse. Miguel also tries to stop Miles from going back to his home universe to save his dad, which he kind of does because Miles goes to and gets stuck in a different universe. But basically, Miles is in a position where he's being told that he has to lose someone close to him, both for multiversal stability, but also for character growth, as Peter B. implied. Peter believes that he would not be Spider-Man if not for Uncle Ben, and though Miles has already been through his Spider-Man origin, it implies that he thinks Miles has something to gain by losing his father, some new mindset that will make him a better Spider-Man. But Miles still goes against this, believing he can save his father and stop the multiverse from collapsing. He thinks he's ready, and I think he's right. Granted, this part of the video leans more into speculation because, believe it or not, I haven't seen Beyond the Spider-Verse, and the movie is still a few years away from existing in a form to be watched by the public, so any speculation here has a pretty nice shelf life. But I think that the canon is mostly fake, or at least was misinterpreted by Miguel, and I think that Miles can do both. Now, this feels a bit like it goes against most Spider-Man movies, even the first Spider-Verse. If Beyond the Spider-Verse disproves the canon, essentially going against traditional Spider-Man concepts, then that directly criticizes the traditional Spider-Man story that was Into the Spider-Verse. But I don't think that Across the Spider-Verse would directly criticize its predecessor. Even beyond the narrative of the films, that just seems like a weird thing to do. Most great sequels build off of what the original established, and Spider-Verse is no different. It further explores the multiverse, has a more unique story, and builds off of the themes and characters established by the first. In Into the Spider-Verse, Miles was bitten by a radioactive spider, lost an uncle, and had to learn how to use his powers the right way. That's some pretty classic Spider-Man stuff, especially for an origin, but those similar events don't play out the same way as they do in most Spider-Man origins. Miles is bitten by a radioactive spider, but he isn't the only Spider-Man in that universe, and the spider that bit him wasn't even from that universe. Miles lost an uncle, but it wasn't his fault, and Miles had to learn how to use his powers the right way, but he didn't have to learn how to use them in a non-selfish way. He had to learn how to overcome his fear of failure to fully utilize his powers. All of those are interesting changes, but you may have noticed one of them is more pertinent to the topic of this video than the others. Unlike with Peter and Ben, Uncle Aaron's death wasn't really Miles' fault. In fact, in his death scene, Uncle Aaron says that it wasn't Miles' fault and that he let Miles down.
And I let you down.
Like with the spider glitching, this isn't really something I thought about until after Across the Spider-Verse, but I think it adds an interesting layer to the movie, and I think it shows how even before Across the Spider-Verse, Miles was an anomaly. In Across the Spider-Verse, Miles is labeled an anomaly. He's different from the rest of the spider people, but not just because he was bitten by a spider from a different universe. He's also different because he doesn't have the same scars as everyone else. His uncle's death wasn't his fault, and unlike what normally happens, he taught his uncle something. Miles is an anomaly, but I don't think that means he isn't Spider-Man. Again, I don't know where these movies are headed, but also I have to imagine the end goal is to show that Miles is worthy of the Spider-Man mantle, and this movie supports that. Miles doesn't feel the guilt of Uncle Aaron's death weighing on him, but he still knows how to be Spider-Man. Miles knew the importance of Spider-Man because he'd seen it firsthand. He didn't need someone to die to give him a moral compass, and he still doesn't. If Uncle Aaron's death gave Miles anything, it was the confidence to keep going. We see, in that really cool shot of Miles running by those skyscrapers with the windows showing important characters, that Miles is comforted and empowered by Uncle Aaron's final words. He's reminded to keep going, in spite of everyone chasing him. The scene before Miles meets Miguel is also interesting, because Miles is talking to Hobie. And no, I'm not saying it's interesting just because of Hobie, though Hobie can really only make a scene better, but the scene is interesting because Hobie is asking Miles why he wants to be here and what his home life is like. Miles says his home life is fine and his parents want what's best for him, to which Hobie replies,
That's a bloody shame.
And when Miles asks why, Hobie replies with,
Because you're not ready for everybody else.
One of the most interesting things to me about Miles is that he still has both of his parents. Miles is a pretty normal kid, and he wasn't ready for everybody else. He freaked out when he was told his dad was going to die, and his reaction was to try to save him anyway. But this isn't a weakness on Miles' part. It's a strength. Miles knew the risks attached to saving his dad, but he can't just let him die. The spiders in the society have the scars of Uncle Ben, or whatever their equivalent is, and they see the cannon as a sort of way to ensure that every spider-powered person becomes a hero, but Miles sees it differently. He sees the life at stake, and he knows from his own life that Spider-Man isn't about losing Uncle Ben, or any of the canon events, possibly aside from gaining spider powers. Spider-Man is about doing the impossible, or at least trying to. Spider-Man doesn't give up when the odds are stacked against him. Remember in Spider-Man 2002 when Tobey had to choose between saving the car and saving Mary Jane? He chose both. Miles here is also choosing both, and I haven't seen Beyond the Spider-Verse, so this may age poorly, but I think he can do both. To answer the main question of the video, what makes a spider person, at least assuming I didn't totally misread this movie, is trying to save everyone. Spider-Man was introduced as a scarred hero, doing what he did because he lost his uncle by being selfish and petty, but the hero doesn't stand for his scars. Spider-Man isn't about who he's lost. It isn't about all the tragic events the character has been through. Spider-Man is all about the mindset. Facing your fears, trying to do the impossible, and not giving up when it feels like everyone is against you. Miles embodies this more than most spider people in this movie, even if he doesn't have a scarred past. Miles knows that what really matters is to use these powers that others don't have to do good that others can't. And I think because of his situation, his lack of scars, he understands this more than the other spiders.